Welcome back to the Varkha channel. Today is the day of question and answers with Dear Varkha. Here goes. I've been seeing a therapist for a while but don't seem any closer to feeling better. Should I talk to her about this or look for another therapist? Well, as a therapist, I make a clear distinction between feeling better and getting better. There are times when people come into sessions for therapy just wanting to feel better. That honestly is not really therapy at all. Of course, it's very nice to sit and have conversations, but there's been a very interesting article written, Therapist, a Paid Friendship. And that's not actually what therapy is about at all. So the goal of your therapy sessions ought to be to actually help you to change behavior. Of course, I know many people may say, but we feel depressed, but obviously your depression leads to certain kind of behavioral patterns. For example, you may not bathe regularly enough, you may overeat, you may undereat, you may keep sleeping, etc. Now, simply trying to feel better is not enough in the process of trying to get yourself to do things differently. Of course, feeling better is the first step towards behavioral change. But what you need to ask yourself and of course your therapist is, how do we measure whether the therapy works or not? So for me, it's very clear. If someone walks into my clinic, I'm only not trying to help them to feel better. That is, maybe to feel more confident, to feel less anxious, to feel more empathetic, to feel more determined. That's one aspect to the therapy session. But I would also hope that besides and beyond that, going further, the person begins to change his or her behavior. So for example, if a person is anxious and has some social anxiety in meeting certain friends, by coming to therapy, he or she is now not only expected to feel good when they leave my clinic, but actually go out and take risks in social occasions by speaking up, by making a point of view, by interacting, by communicating, by engaging. To me, once a person is able to do that, then my therapy is definitely working. So learn to measure the behavioral progress when you go in for therapy sessions. See if your habits are really changing, because at the end of the day, everybody feels good when they talk to another, but feeling good is very different from doing good. Good luck. I have been diagnosed with insomnia and have been prescribed medication for it. What are some alternative ways by which I could try to get some sleep? So insomnia in today's day and age is an unfortunate prevalent illness. And the reason being is not only always psychological, but many a time physiological. For example, with all of us attached to our gadgets, constantly reading on our iPads or scrolling through our phone, there is that aspect of a certain kind of a light which does affect the melatonin levels in our body and then, of course, doesn't allow us to sleep. So what you need to do is get rid of any physiological conditions first before you try and see whether there are any psychological aspects to your insomnia. But let's assume that you sleep at regulated hours and yet you're struggling and you haven't had a gadget with you for 2 hours before you go to bed. Then what could be the reasons as such? Well, the first reason is we say that lack of sleep is not really a problem. It's worrying about not sleeping. So if I go to bed and I'm lying down and now I begin to actually look at the clock. Oh, it's 11:30, it's midnight, it's 12:30, it's 1 o'clock. That thought about not sleeping can usually keep me awake. So a lot of people don't get sleep because they're anxious about the fact that they haven't been able to sleep. Yes, what an irony. So if you really want to manage your sleep, stop fretting about the fact that you're not sleeping. Allow yourself to take as long as it takes, because when the mind is at ease, when the mind is calm, when the mind is rested, you will find yourself slowly but surely getting into a state of lull. So worrying about not sleeping is worse than not sleeping, and it is these constant thoughts that we keep talking to ourselves about lack of sleep which usually keeps us awake. 2. Try and identify if there are some things that are bothering you. You may be thinking about your career, you may be thinking about your relationship, you may be thinking about some things that bother you in the external world. Try and address them and find solutions for them, because many a time when we get some time with ourselves, which is usually when we are in bed, we have a tendency to try and become problem solvers at that time. And an active mind obviously cannot be a restful mind. So try and address whatever it is that you may be wanting solutions for before you go to bed, not at the time when you are in bed. Because when you're able to try and address whatever is bothering you before, you usually go to bed with having at least found some kind of a solution to your problem. So I wouldn't start with medication right away, because it's very easy to pop a pill, but once they become a regular part of your bodily system, they may become extremely addictive and then extremely difficult to kick the habit. Good luck. I have been experiencing some unusual episodes. I've been spacing out in the middle of a conversation and I have to be shaken to get my attention back. Is this normal, or could this be a bigger issue? The definition of attention is nothing but interest in conversation or in what we do. Many a time we are not really interested when someone is talking to us, and with the trend of narcissism around these days, many people keep talking about themselves. So it may be a couple of seconds and then you switch off. Maybe you define this as spacing out, but spacing out is actually not a real condition as such. What may be happening is that that person is not being able to hold your attention and your mind is going on a merry-go-round to all other aspects of your life. So you may be looking at him, but actually in a different land, thinking about maybe what you're going to do the next day, how you're going to prepare for a lecture, etc. What you need to check is, when you're sitting across someone, is it that you're really not interested in what the person has to say? Many a time, of course, with the stimulation that we receive in the form of our gadgets and our phones, attention deficiency disorder, particularly attention deficiency in children and now even in adults, is becoming a very common thing. We don't have the patience, the forbearance and the tolerance to even attend to something for as short a time as sometimes 1 minute. And therefore you see everything is quick, everything is wanting kind of an immediate kind of response. So our ability to tolerate, to withstand, to hear is becoming lesser and lesser as stimulation is impinging on our senses more and more. But more often than not, simple spacing out is nothing but preoccupation with certain things that usually capture our attention, capture our mind. So many times you will also see kids, they are not able to concentrate on studies. And I laugh and say, it's never concentration on studies. Their mind is concentrating on something else and not on the book in front of them. They're concentrating on the fact that they may be going out for a party, what they're going to wear, which holidays they're going to take, how they're going to look. So they're concentrating, but not on the task at hand. So maybe your spacing out is exactly that you're being distracted by something which is more alluring, much more stimulating for you, and therefore the person you're sitting and engaging with is unfortunately kind of being lost. So step back, pause and ask yourself, are you really interested in what the person has to say? And if not, it is better that you stop conversations than begin to believe that there's something neurologically wrong with you. Thank you for watching the Varkha channel. Please do write to me with any questions that you have. I would be happy to answer them. And if you like what you hear, please do hit the like button and do share my video. See you next week. Until then, goodbye.